all my JUKI friends. Thank you for joining me in the JUKI studio. My name is Alba. Today, you're going to watch me solve just a point of stress, something that's been bothering me, and I love it when an everyday problem can be solved with my JUKI sewing machine. So, this is part of my problem. In my car, I like to have just what I call essentials. This is my bag of snacks, writing utensils, just different things that are needed. And I thought these would be my solution, but they kind of float underneath the seat. Someone walks off with them, and the things I need are never around. So I'm really looking for something that is permanently adhered in my car and that I could find the things that I need. So we're going to work together and we're going to make this creation. Now, one of these bags, and these are a plastic mesh bag, really sturdy, very easily gotten. I grabbed one of these mesh bags and I cut off the sides and I made it a little bit shorter and I sacrificed it for my over-the-seat car mat that I'm going to make. I wanted one pocket to be see-through but a little bit sturdier than just clear vinyl. So these really do the trick. But I want it adhered and in place where I have a home to put things away and I could always go back to that spot to find it. So I have one bag here, and this is a 12 by 14 bag that I have cut just the sides off because I wanted the zipper to be offset, and I made a little bit shorter. My height on the bag is about 7 inches that I've cut it down to. So that's going to be pocket number 1. I have 2 pieces of ribbon. I've just folded over some fabric for this. These are 12 inches each. And this is what's going to tie the mat to my headrest, the bottom of my headrest. I'm thinking 2 pieces of elastic. This is a 1/4 of an inch elastic, and these are 18 inches a piece, that for the fabric pockets I'm making, it will make them snug so things do not fall out. I have one piece that is 10 by 20, and I have one piece of fabric that is 14 by 20 as my pockets. And my base for all these pockets, that they will fall and they are going to tie to the back of the seat of my car. I have a pre-quilted piece of fabric and I quilted this on my J350 long arm. I had a design that I was testing out, so I had a scrap of this available. And this is 14 by 21. I took a look at the car and the number of pockets and things that I needed, and this suited my car really well. So let's get started with this because we're going to make this together. I am going to start with the pocket that is clear, or this bag that I took apart. Now, the reason I took it apart is I really didn't want the zipper landing right at the top. I wanted that zipper to be offset so that it would be easy for me to unzip and zip and get to things in here. Now, I want to place this towards the top of my bag, and what I am doing is I'm leaving my raw edges because that will get caught up in my binding at the end. I could have gone all the way to the edge, but this was a size bag I had. I am folding this so that the zipper is all the way to the top, the zipper tape. So I'm going to show you the underside. And when I fold that over, I want that zipper tape to be right at the edge, holding it nice and crisp. And I want to be able to get to that zipper. Now I'm going to, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that your zipper is at least halfway open. You don't want to just make it any more difficult. I am going to do a little bit of stitching right at the edge where that open zipper is, right at like 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and I'm just back tacking, and all I want to do is secure my zipper in place, and I'm actually going to do that on both sides. This will keep everything firmly in place, and I just had my needle unthread, and I love when I get the opportunity to show off a great needle threader on a machine. If you did not catch that, I did needle up down on my machine before I used my needle threader. Always want to do that. And here I have both of those ends with the zipper secured nice and easily. I'm going to place this pocket at least 2 inches from the top, and because I've cut the bottom, I am going to mark that edge, and I'm going to actually fold, and I am going to flip that down so that my raw edges are on the inside. I'm bringing that to my machine, and when you're sewing with vinyls, you want to make sure that you're using a nice long stitch length. So I am on a stitch length of 4, and I am going to sew that down and be right back. Now here I am, I've sewed that pocket down, upside down, so that the right side of the zipper was facing the right side. And now I'm going to flip this up. And now it's going to begin to make a lot more sense. I am going to sew the top edge and the bottom edge, and also the side edges, just to keep it in place. Now I purposely left a little bit of extra fabric so that I can square up and also bind this. So let me get to my top stitching. And there we go. I have my pocket on there, and that'll make it really easy for items that I do need to see and that might be jostled around as I'm driving. And now I'm going to add a couple of other pockets. Now we have the 2 pieces of fabric and 2 pieces of elastic, and I am going to start with those. I did one that was 10 inches by 20 inches, and what I'm planning on doing is sewing the 2 pieces together, creating a tube, and this will become my pocket. It just makes it a much nicer finish, and I'm going to be doing that with both pieces of fabric. The one that's 14 inches wide and the one that's 10 inches wide. And I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this. Now that I have those sewn, I am going to get my elastic ready. And I am going to put that elastic right along that seam that I've just sewn, pulling it from one edge to another. I'm just securing with some back stitching. And I am going to pull the elastic to one end and just find that center point to give me a comfortable point to hold my elastic in place. And this will gather up my fabric just enough where it holds things in place. And I'm doing that along the same seam line that I just created. And I am back tacking at the beginning and at the end. And I have that little bit of gather to hold my pocket together. And I'll be doing that on both pieces. On the one, I made it a little bit tighter with the elastic, pulling a little bit more so that I had some elastic that I cut off. Now what I'm going to be doing is turning these inside out and pressing one edge nice and flat so that they lay nicely. And I'll be right back as soon as I come back from the iron. I'm back from my ironing station, and I also did one other step that I'm going to share. So I turned my two panels inside out with my little elastic band, and my elastic band is where the top is. I just did a little bit of top stitching right at the edge and just below my elastic, just to keep that in place nicely. Now, on the shorter of the two, I have determined that I want this one, that pocket, towards the bottom. And I am just going to put a few pins and hold that in place. So I want my two edges to match up. And you could see that I've left extra fabric. My base piece is 14 inches wide, and I cut my pockets 20 inches to give me a little bit of extra room. And I am now going to decide where I want that extra room to be. So I'm going to put a couple of pleats, something to hold that extra fabric every so often. And you could be very symmetrical about this. You could measure and position, or you could do as I'm doing and just letting it be what it needs to be. Now on my sewing machine, I'm actually going to turn this into 3 pockets. I am going to do a line, leave one small pocket, another small pocket, and an area in the center, and I'm going to sew down the edges and the bottom, and I will be doing that at my sewing machine right now. So the first thing that I like to do is sew down that side. I like to do some back tacking. I am sewing a narrow seam because I will be binding this to cover all of the edges. So I want to be within that binding area so that I don't have to trim up as much. I think this is going to make my life so much easier, at least in my car. Now you can mark where your pockets are going to be, or you can just do it like I'm doing. And again, I'm doing some back tacking at those stress points. And I'm removing my pins as I go. I think this is coming along wonderfully. I have some nice pockets that can hold pens, papers, my all-important snacks, and I'm going to put another pocket in the center. And this is that one that I did a little bit wider. So here I am. I'm going to put it right in the middle. Look at that. I figured that out perfectly, if I do have to say so myself. I am going to secure my ends. I'm going to bring my pins closer to me. I always like to secure the ends first, and I am just checking that I am even on both sides. Now for this one, I will do 2 pockets. So I want to find where the center is, and I am going to fold and find the center of my piece. Notice how I'm precisely measuring. Be as precise or as unprecise as you need to be. I like that placement. I like to do that finger measure for where I'm at to see that I'm nice and even. I'm going to put that pin in place. And for that excess fabric on this one, I'm going to do several pleats. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to put in this pocket, but I want to give myself enough room. And I think several pleats will just make that a little bit easier. I'm actually going to do 2 pleats, one inside of another. I like that. I'm going to pin in place and do the same thing on the opposite side. Now that my pocket is in place and I'm happy with the placement, I will be sewing around all 3 sides, leaving that top open and sewing down the middle. And I'll be right back as soon as that's done. I've sewn my pocket in place and I think it just looks wonderful. I've put my snacks in my pocket, as you could see, and I think this is really going to eliminate a point of stress for me, where I could find everything that I need that normally is roaming around loose in my car. And I think that one of these bags, one of these pockets might hold my shopping bags even. Now I've pinned in place my 2 ties that go around my headrest. And I was thinking that the bottom also needed to be secured. So I cut about 25 inches of this elastic cord, and I'm going to put it at the bottom that I'm going to hold in place. And this could go right around my front seat to hold it in place, and it'll be right at the bottom where that connector is from the top to the bottom. So it'll hold this in place securely. I am going to stitch my cords in place, and then the final step will be doing the binding. And when we come back, I'm going to have that all finished for you. Welcome back. You know, I am just so glad that you were here with me to create this beautiful car catch-all. This is a point of stress for me, and as I said, I love when my JUKI sewing machine could eliminate some stresses in my life. I hope that you enjoy this project. I hope you make it, and that it makes the trip to Grandma's house or the cross-country trip or even just to the grocery store a little bit easier for you. I went back as you were gone, and I did my binding all around to finish off the edges, leaving the ties at the top to go around my headrest. I added the elastic cord at the bottom to have it snugly go around my seat, and I think this is going to look absolutely beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed this project. Until next time, bye-bye.